when there is some particular element or characteristic of the human species which naturally drives humanity towards its ascension, towards its awakening, towards the blossoming and the expansion of its own spiritual wisdom, the darkness does its best to circumvent this natural phenomenon. And the way that it does this is it takes this impulse that humanity has and it steers it into some container or some reservoir where it still has an opportunity to express itself, but is done so in a contained environment where the ultimate intention of this impulse does not truly have the effect that it is intended to have. So for humanity to have this impulse that it wants to preserve itself, preserve the planet, so that it can continue into the future, this would very naturally, eventually, point to this idea that hi, thank you for being here. I'm Muzz iEvolv. It's great to see you again. Many choices, but yet here you are. I really appreciate that. Have you read this book yet? Now is the time. The 3 Awakenings That Save Humanity. Many great ideas and concepts in here that will literally change the way that you conceive of yourself, the all, and the way that you live your life also. It's available in the paperback, audio, and ebook, and the link for that is below this video. Also, I have this other book, which is now completed, but I'm releasing it as part of a larger strategy, which has the purpose of disengaging my income from YouTube. So I'll have to release everything together. So even though it's done, it's still a little bit of other stuff that needs to be completed. If you would like to do a private channeling with me, then go below, click the link to make an inquiry. You'll go to a form, fill it out, and then my system will send you additional information about how it works, what it costs, and so on. Then after you receive that, you can decide if you want to proceed or not. So doing the inquiry doesn't obligate you to anything. If you'd like to help me out with what I'm doing here, I have made a membership site with 3 levels. The most expensive is less than $2 per day, and you receive the transcripts, the audios, and the videos of every channeling I've made in the past, every channeling that I've made in the future. Again, the link for that is below. Before we get into the topic today, I must warn you that I'm in a room which is quite echoey, and also there's an air conditioner on the wall here, and when it really gets going, it sounds like a plane spooling its engines. So that may be kicking in and out while I'm doing this session today. I'm just hoping that it's not too disturbing. And on to today's topic. It is Awakening Update. The moment for truth has come. Greetings and thank you for the opportunity to update you once again on the awakening. So we are calling this channel Awakening Update. The moment for truth has come. The reason that we have given this session that title, in particular, this part, the moment for truth has come, is because as the dynamics of energy continue to shift on your planet, in the Earth human experience, then it is becoming more difficult or more comfortable for the darkness to continue as it has for so long in the past. It has been very accustomed to existing in the shadows, and yet as the energetics change, those shadows are diminishing in their area, in their volume, you could say. So there are less places where they can exist and operate in total anonymity, in total secrecy. They still have a substantial foothold because they control so much of the cultural pillars and industry and so on. Yet nonetheless, what they would consider their foothold is being eroded. And the erosion, because it is a binary phenomenon, results in more of the space they once occupied being taken up by the light, because that is the binary, the darkness and the light. So, as this erosion continues, and it is analogous with the expansion of the light, then the light is the environment for the truth. And the reason that we say it is the moment for the truth is because it has now reached a proportionality in the balance between the darkness and the light, that the truth is ready to be heard, and ready to be heard by the masses. The largest bulk of your species are still under the spell and are more paying attention to what is being spewed as the false narrative by the cultural pillars. And the truth, those that have been speaking the truth and broadcasting the truth, have still very much in their mindset of where information is relevant, are on the fringes and not really, or haven't been, getting a look in, you could say. So, the truth is continuously being swept away in the wake of the darkness, in the wake of the false narrative. Yet, the transformation of the energy dynamics is creating the ambience of a necessity or a desire for authenticity. And we have made sessions before on this particular topic, that it is now the age of authenticity. And of course, one of the fundamental, and you could say most crucial elements of authenticity is the truth, because they are in large part synonymous. So, as there is a growing desire for authenticity and a growing expectation from those that lead your countries, lead your institutions, lead your companies, that they act with a degree of authenticity. And also, as all of you are starting to become more immersed in a quality of light which has less contamination from the darkness, then you also are becoming more proficient at detecting what is authentic and what is inauthentic. So all of this is setting up an ambience or a set of circumstances where the time for truth has come. And the truth will no longer be swept aside with the same ease by the wake of the darkness that it has up until recent times. And there is such a vast reservoir of truth that is waiting to break through. And this truth is so profound in its scope, so profound in its implications, that once it starts to get a foothold, and some of these ideas, which are the truth of what has been occurring, start to transcend the place where it has been held in purgatory or in limbo as a fringe piece of information which is not worthy of inspection, is not worthy of given any validation, to a place of common knowledge where you will be able to go into the environment where you are amongst the other citizens of your cities, of your nations, and it will be generally accepted that that is the truth, what was once a fringe idea. So, to be more specific, you will begin to notice that the truth about the pandemic, and also about the response to the pandemic, including the medical intervention, will be revealed as being something entirely different to what was thought to be the truth. And it will no longer be fringe, but it will be mainstream. It will literally become common knowledge. And the implications to this becoming common knowledge will start a transformation of the human mindset, and they will start to perceive, or you as a species will begin to perceive your reality in an entirely different way. And this is what we speak of in the book we co-authored with the channeler as Your Reality Awakening. It is coming to the realization, the understanding that there is a unified malevolence on your planet that is literally pitting itself against the rest of humanity. And they have chosen the philosophical pathway of the darkness. And all that they do is to further until a state of completion of a very ancient agenda, which they have passed on through family bloodlines for many generations. And as we have said many times, that is the total and utter dominion and control and capture of the entire planet and all of its resources, which includes humanity. And part of this process, to ensure that they can go into perpetuity without any challenge coming from the masses, then they plan to do many diabolical things to your species, creating essentially a different class or a different species than what you currently are, because they will change your genetics. They will integrate you with technologies, and they will greatly diminish the size of your population so that you are relegated to a muted slave class on which they will predatorily feed, it could be said. However, because the moment for truth is coming, then this is going to be a revelation that your species has of this dark element, that their plans are diabolical, that they do intend to reduce your population by many billions. And in fact, they have already begun on this agenda. And so, if humanity does not act, then it will be a great threat, not to your species only, but also to you, the individual. And so this is when your species will cross the threshold of the way that it considers self-preservation. Because instead of self-preservation being a concept of keeping oneself alive so that one's genetic code can continue with future generations, which has been the innate and primal instinct of humans since the beginning. But you are now approaching a time where you are going to be unifying into the single being, the humanity being. And so this being, when it thinks of itself, it does not think of the individual units in a similar way that when the cells of your body act, they do not act in a way which is beneficial to themselves only. Your cells think in terms of the entire organism, of your entire body. And so the decisions they make, the service they provide, is with that in mind. Because you are a group being, and your cells are aware to some degree that they are a unit of a larger being. So your cells identify themselves in the very rudimentary consciousness they have, that they are, yes, an individual cell, but they are also the group. And therefore they do not act solely in the interest of themselves as the cell, but rather they act in service to the entire organism. As humanity comes to the place where it is beginning to more and more realize that it is the single being, the group being, which is the humanity being, and each of you are a cell of that being, then you will begin to act in ways and think in ways and make decisions which are not on the basis of continuing your own genetics, but rather on the basis of continuing the entire species into the future, thinking now as the unity and less so as the individual. And of course, this is on the horizon. It is an inevitability for humanity, because once humanity ascends into the fourth density, then you will very much exist in this way, not conceptually, but in reality, viscerally. You will be all integrated into each other and literally perceive of self as the unity, as well as the individual, in the same way that the smaller fractal of your existence does when we look at the cellular level. So, if you are going to be thinking in this way, where you are the entire species and not just the individual, then you can see it now is incumbent on you that you make some contribution, you take some action, you begin living in a particular way, which is less focused solely on oneself or on one's immediate family, and is now more about what is occurring to the entire species. And humanity does have this as a basic innate drive, and this has been hijacked by the climate movement. So, as it is the way of the darkness, when there is some particular element or characteristic of the human species which naturally drives humanity towards its ascension, towards its awakening, towards the blossoming and the expansion of its own spiritual wisdom, the darkness does its best to circumvent this natural phenomenon. And the way that it does this is it takes this impulse that humanity has and it steers it into some container or some reservoir where it still has an opportunity to express itself, but is done so in a contained environment where the ultimate intention of this impulse does not truly have the effect that it is intended to have. So for humanity to have this impulse that it wants to preserve itself, preserve the planet, so that it can continue into the future, this would very naturally, eventually, point to this idea that you are being victimized by an elite class, the unified malevolence, the cabal of darkness. And they are the true purveyors and cause of most of the suffering and the damage to your climate and the damage to your environment and all manner and means of atrocity and austerity and poverty and famine and disease. Much of it can be traced back, almost all of it, to this elite class. And if humanity was permitted to steer these impulses without them being derailed into a closed area where they have no impact, then you would have by now realized what is occurring and taken action to remove this unified malevolence. However, even though this revelation has been delayed by some decades, it is still inevitable that humanity reaches this place. The darkness, despite being very powerful in the 3D, are very impotent in the spiritual realm, in the powers of the light. They really are weaklings in this regard. And therefore, they will eventually become overpowered by the tsunami of light which is being cast over them by the awakening of humanity, which itself is empowered by the planet, by the solar system, and by this region of your cosmos. So, this means that the darkness, they are cornered in a sense. And while they have been working towards this agenda for millennia, for a very long time, they have been in control of as much of the planet as they possibly could. And they have done this through wielding of the darkness, using the darkness as a power, because they have created an environment where it is the most ruthless that rise to the top. And in a species such as yours, which is spiritually dichotomous, a very rare presentation, it is inevitable that until you awaken and come to a place of unity where darkness has been fully rejected, that those who are most conversant in darkness, most at ease with wielding and filling oneself with the darkness, will always be those that are at the top of the power pyramid, because they are willing to do things to serve their ambition that the good men and women of your species are unwilling to do. The good men and women of your species are not willing to release an engineered pandemic into your environment, which would result in the deaths of many millions, and then respond with another engineered bioweapon, which further kills and damages many millions more. Only the most ruthless and the most dark would be willing to go to such extremes for the sole purpose of their own selfish ambitions. And this is where you find yourselves now. But these actions that they took are now becoming part of the truth paradigm and on the brink of becoming part of common knowledge. So, the darkness, as we said, are cornered, and they must make some moves. They must take some actions. They must do whatever it is they can do to maintain their tenuous grip on power. And although they appear to operate with total hubris, because if they are going to control the world and their areas of darkness are diminishing, where they are no longer having the luxury of absolute ease of secrecy, then they are now prematurely crossing the threshold from being anonymous to being fully out in the open, in their tyranny, in their darkness, in their evil. They have decided that if they cannot hide in secrecy any longer, then they will fully come out and show to the world that they are the tyrants, the gods, the masters of your planet and your species. And this is why you are seeing much more blatant tyranny, much more blatant disregard of the rights of the citizen. However, it is an act of desperation that they have come out in this way. So their hubris is hollow. Their confidence is a facade. Their belief that they can ultimately triumph, which is what they present to the world, is very sketchy, is very unstable, and they are in privacy when amongst each other, very fearful of what is taking place on your planet. And they are very confronted by humanity's awakening and this pouring of the light into the narrative, which is literally disintegrating the narrative, deconstructing the narrative. And when the narrative has been deconstructed and it is reduced to nothing but rubble, it will blow away like dust and reveal underneath the one thing which the cabal of darkness is afraid of more than anything at this current time, and that is the truth. So, this makes the cabal of darkness dangerous, Because if the truth starts coming out in a way which they cannot contend with, which is exactly what is beginning to occur, where you have very well-known, influential men and women who have philosophically chosen the side of the light, are now speaking the truth. And these people have such a level of respect and authenticity and authority that the regular men and women who have been fully under the spell are now beginning to pay more attention, because it is no longer fringe, it is becoming mainstream. These very reputable people are now speaking the same story, singing the same song. So, the Cabal of Darkness, in its desperate response, may try to do some absolutely insane actions and responses, which would be decimating to such a large degree that it is them preferring to burn it all down rather than to lose. They are willing to sacrifice an entire planet and its species simply so they can escape the justice which is coming their way. Yet they are not in a position where they can do this, and they are maneuvering to find a way where they can make the next move on the chessboard in a way which gives them a big advantage, which tips the scale heavily back in their favour. So from their perspective, it needs to be a big move. Subtlety is no longer working. It must be something absolutely dramatic. And the way that this can be counteracted is if humanity continues to awaken as fast as it possibly can. And remembering that we said it is now the time for you to think and operate in a way which is illustrating that you recognize you are a cell of the larger being. So it is not someone else's responsibility. It is not any good to you to expect the politicians or the individuals or the influence that you admire to step up and take control and bring down this dark element and to spread the truth, while you sit back and observe solely as a spectator. This is shirking your responsibility, because this is not how the cells of your body operate. Each of your cells are actively involved in the maintenance of the entire organism, in the function and the operation of the entire organism. So, in an analogous way, it is also your responsibility to behave in some way which is contributory to this larger phenomenon, particularly because you are here listening to this message, particularly because you are already going through your own awakening, particularly because you know what we are saying is the truth. It rings authentic in your heart. So, what is it that you can do? Be prepared to spread the truth as you become aware, assuming that you have had the wisdom to start looking outside of the mainstream for your information, and you are becoming in possession of insight and truth, which those that are still trapped within the spell of the false narrative are as yet unaware of. Then make some moves, make some effort to share this information, to ensure others who are ready yet still deprived of the truth are hearing the truth. The moment for truth has come. In the past, if you were to say the truth in the way that we are suggesting, that you may have been ridiculed, you may have been pushed aside, you may have been ostracized and cut off from your family, from your friends. But that time has passed. So we are not asking you to be the courageous pioneer. Instead, what we are asking is that you join the formation which has already assembled, which already has a momentum, which is already becoming a beacon of the truth. And so it is less necessary now for you to take such social risk and still be a beacon of the truth. So, now is the time for you to step up and play your role so that the truth can spread across the globe in the fastest way possible. The energetic dynamics are now completely in your favor. And for the darkness to be fully muted before it does some of its absolutely extreme, insane, diabolical ideas and strategies, then the light must spread as fast as it possibly can. And this will be done if individuals, especially those that are awake and informed, start doing their role as a cell of the larger organism and spreading the truth. So, from our perspective, humanity's ascension is inevitable. However, what really is at stake now is how much suffering must humanity endure in the interim before arriving at that spot? And also, how much suffering must you as an individual endure before reaching this culmination? There is a real threat posed by this unified malevolence. And that threat is not only to your way of life, but literally to your actual continuation in this current incarnation. The Cabal of Darkness, if they had full capacity to deploy their plans in the totality of what they have as their vision, then your murder would be assured, because this is the degree and depths of their depravity, of their darkness. So that outcome never eventuates, you must act now. So, let us finish in this way. We are very proud of your species. We are very proud of you also, the individual who is watching this, because you have come so far since the very earliest time that we began observing your species. The transformation which we have witnessed is absolutely astounding. And it was always assumed that when the end game was reached, it would look something like it does now. Yet, even so, it is more extreme than we even anticipated. Because what you are doing here is unprecedented, we made extrapolations on the basis of what we had observed in the past. Yet, even so, it did not inform us adequately for what we are observing. The extremeness of the current Earth human experience is really something to behold. Because you are all immersed in the boiling water, like the frog, then you do not fully appreciate in the way that we do how incredibly tenuous and difficult your current existence is. So, it is with great admiration that we observe, and we also cheer you on, because you are so close, and it does not take much for you to step over that final obstacle, so you as a species can explode into the magnificent being you are destined to become. And it is our absolute honor to be here week after week to give you the rallying pep cry, so that you can have, with greater clarity, a vision of the future and an understanding of the present, so you can make that transition with the greatest ease and skill. We love you all dearly, and we are excited like we have not been in a very long time. Thank you, and we love you. Thank you very much for making it to the end of another channeling. That was quite inspiring, that one. I hope you enjoyed it. So, story time. I'm going to tell you a story about the first dog which I actually owned as an adult. So there were dogs in my life when I was a child, but then when I was a young man, I bought my first ever dog. And this dog was an Australian blue heeler, it's sort of classic dog in Australia. And it was a female. So I've owned 3 dogs in my life. And the first one I had for 2 years, the second one I had for 4 years, and then Bango I've had now, well, he's 15. So I've had him for a long time. The first 2 dogs didn't live that long really because I didn't know how to care for them properly. So the first dog, she was my work dog, and I had a job. I used to work on construction sites, and I used to take my dog, and then one day my big boss said, "You cannot take your dog anymore." So when I went to drive to work the next day without my dog, in my work vehicle with a trailer, my dog ran out behind my car and the trailer went over her. And like 12 hours later, she was dead. Internal bleeding, I assume, which is horrible, sad story. Sorry to bring you down. But I'm going to tell you a funny story about her. Her name was Alex, and I loved her dearly, as I do all my dogs. And she was very verbal. She used to love to bark, and we used to go places in the car, and she would be in the front seat when I was driving, and she'd be barking out the window. And she would launch. She would like launch, but she wouldn't go out. She would launch, and then she'd go, and then she'd pull her head back in again. Like if she saw someone on the footpath, she'd go, literally stick her head, put her paws on the windowsill of the car door, and bark out the door. So one day I'm driving down like a major road, like 6-lane road, and she's going nuts at the people in the cars going past and stuff like that. And then I went around a corner, and so she's that side, and then I went and turned this way. So the momentum of the car's going this way, and then just as I did that, she actually launched out the window. So kind of what's happened is, the car's gone that way and she's gone that way. So basically her and the car separated. And she literally went all the way out the window. And so just as a reflex, I was driving, and I went, whoa, and I lunged over and I grabbed her and I had her by the tail. And so her entire body was hanging out the car, and the only thing in the car was her tail, which I had hold of. So I'm like literally, my hand is on the windowsill of the passenger door while I'm driving. So I'm like this, like this, holding my dog's tail. And I had to drive like quite a distance before there was like an exit from this major road with the car, with my dog hanging out of the car door by the tail. Oh, it was a highly stressful moment. And then eventually pulled off to the side of the road where there was an opportunity, and the aircon stopped. Oh, so much quieter now. Now it stops. Now that I'm finished channeling, it stops. And then then I couldn't pull her in because she was hanging over. I couldn't actually pull her in, so I had to actually undo my seatbelt, and then climb over, and then open the door, and then lower her down to the ground on the other side. Oh, nuts. It was a crazy time. But she survived, and we went on to have like another year of wonderful life together. So that wasn't the tragic story. All right, I hope you enjoyed that story, and I want you to know that I'm a much more skilled dog owner nowadays than I was back then. Okay, thank you. I love you, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.